Rotarians and guests, welcome to the February 3rd meeting of the Rotary Club of York. Our members are dedicated to service above self and Rotary's four-way test. Leading our song and pledge is past President Brian Tate, and delivering our invocation is Michael Reichman. Brian.
Good afternoon, Rotarians. Please join me. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside, let freedom ring. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Rotarians, a disclaimer first that some of what I'm about to say does in fact come from Wikipedia, but not all of it. Regardless, please join me in a word of prayer. The Nobel Prize winning economist Friedrich von Hayek strongly believed in the concept of dispersed knowledge. That is, dispersed knowledge in economics says that no single agent has information of all the factors which influence prices and production. Each agent possesses incomplete knowledge as to most of the factors. And 19th century philosopher John Stuart Mill further said that independent individuals can make better use of dispersed knowledge than any central figure. What better reason for diversity, equity, and inclusion than to make the best use of humanity's innate dispersed knowledge? By opening ourselves empathetically to the experience of others, can we create the most prosperous society for all God's creatures? By learning from others of different backgrounds, identities, and viewpoints. May we embrace dispersed knowledge so that we may find a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive world. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Brian and Michael, for opening our meeting with a heartwarming song and invocation. That warmth is especially appreciated since Punxsutawney Phil, that's a tongue twister. Punxsutawney Phil predicted 6 more weeks of winter. On to our announcement. Several guests have joined us online today. Welcome to all of you, including East York Rotary Club President Kyle King. Thank you. Also, over 110 of our members completed our new diversity, equity, and inclusion survey. Thank you. Our DEI committee emailed a survey to all of our members last Thursday morning. If you did not receive it, please check your junk folder first. And if it's not in there, then contact Chris Toff. Our DEI committee will meet Monday at 8 a.m. Our membership committee will meet today following the club meeting. Our District 7390 monthly development session is Monday, February 8th from 6 to 8 p.m. The topic is community partnerships. Any member attending the Zoom session is eligible for an attendance makeup. Send that email to Renee. Your program suggestions are always welcome. Please pass those along to past President Mike Summers. Congratulations are in order to Shannon Burwager and her husband Jason, who welcomed a son, Bo Everett, on January 24th. Congratulations. Next up is our Biz Spotlight. Did you know that the York County Library's 13 locations attract over 1.5 million visitors annually? A nice variety of free programs are available online, including digital story times, book discussions, and virtual programs, plus research articles, learning modules, test preparations, and K through 12 learning resources. York County Libraries are an indispensable resource for internet connectivity. A $10,000 Pennsylvania Humanities Grant is bridging the digital divide for City of York School District students by supplying hotspots to over 30 school students and families who need internet connection at home to attend classes. It's common for a hotspot in one household to serve several siblings. Their pandemic pivot included closing their operations countywide on March 15th per the direction of the governor and Commonwealth libraries. During that 3-month closure, over 1,000 new library cards were renewed and issued. The library's ebook and audiobook service, Access 360, and the popular Hoopla provide members with free access to over 80,000 free digital library items. York County Libraries returned to offering in-library browsing in August and has adjusted its service model, taking extra precautions to provide members and staff with safe and healthy environment. Capital projects are moving forward to meet the 21st century library needs of York Countyans. Digital groundbreakings will occur this month at 3 libraries in Hellam, Redline, and Martin Library in downtown York. Thank you to Rotarian Robert Lambert for providing this information and leading our library system. Robert has been a member since July of 2000. Next, it's poll time. Thanks, Ben, for the great AV. So, are you rooting for York High grad Bruce Arians and his Buccaneers? Are you a Brady or a Mahomes fan? We'll find out Sunday which team will be our next Super Bowl champion. But in the meantime, cast your vote today and we'll see which team is a Rotary Club of York fan favorite, the Buccaneers or the Chiefs. Uh-oh, JL says anybody but Brady. Don't be a hater, JL.
All right, we're gonna give it about 10 more seconds here.
Brian says go Bruce.
All right, looks like about 72 of you have voted so far. That's 72% of you. About 20 more votes here could be needed. Consider this 4th down right here. All right, we'll close in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And there's your results.
Wow, Kansas City Chiefs. Interesting. Okay. My vote's for Brady. We'll see what happens. We'll reconnect on that next Wednesday. Thanks, Ben. All right, next up we have our from our Youth Leadership Committee, our Students of the Month, Austin Shank.
Yes, I am very excited to introduce these 2 deserving students from the York Academy Regional Charter School. Both are in 11th grade, and I will introduce Mia first. Her school activities include servant leadership. She enjoys the hobbies of dancing, drawing, and drill team. And her career plans are to be an artist, architectural engineer, or STEAM. And very excited about those things that she desires. And also for Sergio Paul, he is currently a member of the Student Advisory Board and for the division of the National Arts Honor Society. He regularly performs in school musicals and plays, as well as the modern music program. And he loves music. He loves playing it, listening to it. He loves writing stories, playing video games, and creating art. And he also is a member of the York Youth Symphony Orchestra, and he placed 44th in the Pima District 7 Orchestra auditions that were held in December. He had plans to attend Temple, and he is looking forward to a degree in music production. So with no further ado, we'll watch the videos that they have produced for us.
Hello, my name is Mia Johnson. I am in 11th grade and I go to York Academy. Something that is important to me is art. Art has played a major role in my life and has allowed me to have many opportunities. My favorite thing to do is to draw and paint. I have done many commissions for people and personally given away art to many of my friends and family. I have art in barbershops, churches, and even in people's homes. My favorite part is the facial expressions people make after they've seen what I've created. Art is important to me because it is my way of relieving stress and revealing my emotions that I may not be able to necessarily explain with my words. Ever since I was little, art was integrated into my everyday life. It is something that keeps me going on days I feel discouraged. Thank you for allowing me to share something that is important to me.
Hello, Rotary Club of York. My name is Sergio Paul, and I'm an 11th grader attending York Academy Regional Charter School. I have many hobbies, including playing video games and making art, but the hobby that I find most impactful in my life is playing music. My musical journey started with learning the violin. I've been playing for 7 years now and have played in a number of locations around York. Currently, I am part of the York Youth Symphony Orchestra, a symphony group composed of high school band and orchestra students throughout York County. In December, I plan to audition for the Pennsylvania Music Educators Association's District 7 Orchestra, which is a high-level orchestra composed of students from Adams, Cumberland, Dauphin, Franklin, Lancaster, Lebanon, Perry, and York counties. As of now, I also currently teach private violin lessons to younger students year-round. In addition to playing violin, I've also developed skills in playing 3 other instruments: guitar, piano, and cello. I've been very active in York Academy's modern music program and have performed in nearly all of the yearly concerts we've held since 2015. As far as my plans for the future go, my college of choice is Temple University in Philadelphia, and I plan to major in music production. I would like to build a career of music production and performance. Thank you.
Congratulations and welcome to you, Mia and Sergio, on this honor. This is the first year that we honor York Academy Regional Charter School students. So you're setting the bar very high. And it's in this little glimpse that you provided our club into your lives and your accomplishments. It's obvious that you are both very talented artists, and you're also very generous in sharing your gifts with our community. So thank you and congratulations. We hope that when things are back to normal and COVID is a thing of the past, that you would have an opportunity and consider joining our club for an in-person meeting on an upcoming Wednesday. You're welcome at any time. We know you'll be very busy because you are now, and your futures are bright, and you will certainly be busy in the future, but we wish you the very best of luck. You're an excellent representation of your school, of your community, and congratulations again. Sergio, I'd like to wish you the best of luck in your audition for the District 7 Orchestra. We have every faith that they will give you the opportunity to join all those students in the district. So thank you again for Austin and the work of your committee. And we'd like to give you both, Mia and Sergio, a virtual round of applause for your accomplishments. Thank you. You will both receive Scholastic Achievement Award certificates from the Rotary Club of York. So hope you can stick around for the rest of our program. And to introduce our program today is President-elect Jackie Summers.
Thank you, President Ann. Good afternoon, everybody. It was good to see Jamil there too. He was our most recent recipient of our Service Above Self Award. So the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, a very talented family. Last fall, President Ann and Bert and I attended the Large Club Conference in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And one of the highlights for us was a presentation by Ron Harris on diversity and inclusion. We left there really inspired by his words and are just delighted that he is willing to be with us today. So in his role at Blue Cross Blue Shield, Ron is, one second, I have lost, there we go. In his role at Blue Cross Blue Shield, he's responsible for cultivating a corporate culture where diversity and inclusion are aligned with the company's corporate strategy and values. Reporting to the CEO, Ron provides strategic leadership and counsel for diversity initiatives within the organization, including diversity awareness training, recruitment, cultural competency training, and employee development, as well as community outreach. He has served in various management roles at Blue Cross for 30 years and is also a co-founder of the Blue Cross Blue Shield Association Diversity Alliance. The Alliance acts as a resource to share best practices and address diversity, awareness, and community outreach across the country. Under his leadership, the company has received many accolades. In 2019, Forbes ranked Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee the #3 best employer for diversity nationwide. It also named the company one of America's best large employers for the second consecutive year. In addition, Blue Cross earned the title of Best Place to Work for LGBTQ equality from the Human Rights Campaign, scoring 100% on its nationwide Corporate Equality Index survey. Blue Cross has also received recognition from Forbes as a best employer for women and best employer for diversity. In 2017, the National Organization for Workforce Diversity selected Ron as a Legacy Award recipient in recognition of his significant contribution in the advancement of workforce diversity and inclusion. The award is designed to honor individuals and institutions that impact the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Ron has also been nominated for the prestigious Robert Shaw Symbol of Hope Award and has been featured in USA Today as well as Equal Opportunity and African American Career World magazines. He's also been recognized by the Chattanooga Women's Leadership Institute as one of the top 5 men promoting women in Chattanooga. Ron frequently serves as an expert speaker at events nationwide on the issues of generational diversity, disability awareness, stereotypes, effective cross-cultural communication, religion in the workplace, and the business case for diversity. Fellow Rotarians and guests, please welcome Mr. Ron Harris.
Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians. Thank you so much, President Ann and President-elect. Thank you for that generous introduction, and it's certainly good to connect with you again. And I'll tell you, I listen to people talking about Atlanta. Well, I'm 123 miles north of Atlanta, and when it snows in Atlanta, or there's a threat of snow, JL, in Atlanta, we shut down Chattanooga as well and buy all the potatoes and milk at every supermarket in town, because we know that we're probably going to be snowed in for, I don't know, at least to June. So thank you so much. And thank you for this opportunity to just come and chat with you just a little bit. And I bring you greetings from the Chattanooga Downtown Rotary under the leadership of President Elaine Swafford. So we greet you. I'll tell you, let me just say a few things, and I'm absolutely interruptible. Anything that you might want to have by way of compliments, criticisms, gripes, complaints, certainly we welcome all of those, and I don't want you to be bashful. So let me just spend a couple of minutes talking about the work that we do. Kudos, I saw that you have a DE&I committee as part of your club, and I just think that's absolutely wonderful. Many clubs, and I've spoken to about 10. I'm well traveled. In the last 6 months, I've been to San Antonio, Spokane, Louisiana, and it's interesting. I told my wife just moments ago not to disturb me because I was in York, and she told me to enjoy my travel and bring her back a souvenir. And so I'm certainly happy to be a part of this conversation today. You know, our world is changing. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. Our world is changing, and it's no longer changing at an evolutionary pace, which is a slow, gradual, naturistic change. It's changing at a revolutionary pace, which is quick change. And we see it happening before our very eyes. If you could reduce the world, to a village of 100 people, take the 7 billion people that occupy this terrestrial globe and reduce it to a village of 100 people with all human ratios remaining the same. with all human existing ratios remaining exactly the same, embedded in only 100 people, 60 of those would be Asians, 12 would be Europeans, 5 would be Americans, 8 would be Latin Americans, 14 would be African, 1 would be a Pacific Islander, 51 would be female, 49 would be male, 82 would be non-white, 18 would be white, 89 would be heterosexual, 11 would be members of the GLBT community, 13 would be Christians, 67 would be non-Christians, 21 would be Muslim, 15 would be Hindu, 6 would be Buddhist, 5 would be animist, 6 would believe in other religions, 14 of the 100 would be atheists, 13 would speak Chinese, Mandarin, 7 would speak English, 6 would speak Hindi, 6 would speak Spanish, 5 would speak Russian, 4 would speak Arabic, 3 would speak Bengali, 3 would speak Portuguese, and the other languages would be from Indonesia, Japan, German, and French, and some other language. 20 of those would be undernourished, 15 would be overweight, 1 would be dying from starvation, 6 people would own 59% of the entire world's wealth, and all 6 would be from the United States. 1 would have HIV, 7 would have access to the internet, and only 1 would have a college education. That's what our world looks like in microcosm. And so our world is changing, and it's changing very rapidly. Generationally, middle age is now 64. Generationally, middle age is now 64, which means some of you just got younger. Also, it's important to understand that a baby girl born today can expect to live to be 105. This is the first time in the history of America where we have 4.5, as I call it, 4.5 generations in the workforce at the same time. And the average young person starting to work today was born. I continue to say born in 2000. Okay, y'all missed it. They were born in 2000. And that's important to understand because, and let me just say this parenthetically in case there are some misconceptions, but millennials are in their 30s. Millennials is not that group that we see growing up now. That's not the group. Millennials are in their 30s. We often refer to IGNs and Generation Z as millennials, and they are not. And the real difference between all of these generations is the way we communicate. And truth be told, the biggest problem we face in any of our relationships has to do with the way we communicate. And so when we start to deal with young people, particularly in this work, if you have grandchildren, if you want to have some fun and get disappointed, understand that you can call them on the telephone and they won't answer. But you text them 3 seconds later and you get all kind of chatter. And so the way that we interact with one another is really based on our communication styles. That's really the problem. And that's the problem with a lot of the incivility that's taking place in our country today is ineffective communication. And so it's important that we understand that. And we've also got to understand that men and women don't talk alike. So there are some gender barriers. And I often, when I'm speaking to groups, I often ask the men, are there any men on the line who are not married? Anybody in love or engaged, but you're not married? Because I can help you right now. Somebody put in the chat if you're not married. I feel compelled to help you and help your marriage to last. And just by way of example, you know, I've been married to my wife for a long time. And one of the things is we just celebrated, if you can believe it, we just celebrated 51 years of marriage. And, you know, that's too long to be dead, but she's not in the room, so I can say that. But it's important because I know that sometimes we do this. We bump heads because men and women don't talk alike. And so I'm going to help the single guys. So if your wife, if your girlfriend, if your fiance comes in and while you're watching the Super Bowl that was where we just saw the poll, and she says to you, the garbage can is full. The garbage can is full. I know as men through our male ears, we heard that it's full. And we know that we can step in it and get 2 more days worth of trash in there before the garbage man comes. But what she really said was, ladies, she actually said, take out the trash. But that's not what we heard. And until we are also willing to admit, and if this gets out, I know y'all told it because I've not said this to any other Rotary. So I know if it gets out, somebody from York leaked this. Black folk and white folk don't talk alike. Okay, I'm just helping y'all. Okay. Let me give you an example of that before you jump all over me. How many of you got in a, when was the last time you got in a fight with your spouse? Somebody just kind of raised their hand if you got in a fight with your spouse. Okay, I see one hand. Now, Mr. Stephen, what you really mean is that y'all argued. Is that right? You really mean y'all argued? Yeah, but see, when you black and somebody get in a fight, that means something a little different. That means somebody got hit. Okay, you argue, then you fight. The two are exclusive. Now, why do you say something like that, Ron? Well, because when I speak to school systems, and I see a disproportionate number of young African Americans or minorities being suspended or in school suspension, and I'll ask about the data. Well, what happened? Well, they got in a fight. And the kids are saying we didn't get in a fight. We have some communication issues sometimes. Now, why do we say that? Why do I say all of this stuff? And I'm going to ramble for a moment. It's because we don't see people as they are. We see them as we are. And we spend a lot of time reading our biographies into other people's lives. Let me do it again. Some of the problems that we face in this work is that we spend too much of our time reading our biographies into other people's lives and invalidating the experiences of one another. Now, we don't mean to. That's not our intent. That comes from us, our unconscious biases. And I know we hear that a lot now. But unconscious bias is not about halos and horns. It's not about good and bad people. We all bring some biases to the table. We all bring those. And so our everyday walking around unconscious biases impact our everyday walking around decision making. And what you don't know, you don't know. And so some of the things we do, and as Ms. Summers read, some of the things we do at the Cross and Shield, and I'm happy that they allow me to be the face of that. But one of the things that I try to tell them, if you don't get anything else out, if you don't get anything else out of what I say today, I want you to understand that we don't see people the way they are. We see them the way we are. And that's important to understand. But if you're going to do this work, you have to be able to suspend your right to become offended if you're going to be effective. You've got to be able to suspend your right to become offended if you're going to be effective in this work. Not about good and bad people, because what you don't know, you don't know. And just parenthetically, Ms. Jacqueline, if this gets out, I know y'all told it too. Forbes just earlier this week rated us as one of the top, again, as one of the top companies in America. And so did the Human Rights Campaign and Modern Healthcare Magazine. And all of that stuff is good. It's good. I appreciate being the face of it. But what's really important is to create an environment of inclusivity. You know, we use these languages, diversity, and I tell people, I don't know much about diversity but here's what I do know. Diversity is organic. If you have two of anything, you have diversity. I think the term has been bastardized and politicized, and it's created a wedge between us. Diversity is organic. Inclusion is intentional, but cultural competency is imperative. You can ill afford as a club, as a leader, as a business owner, as leaders and managers, you cannot afford to be culturally illiterate. You can no longer afford to be culturally and corporately illiterate. And that means that we've got to face some hard truths. And some of them are that we bring all this stuff. It's the truth of the matter is our video doesn't always match our audio as leaders. And it's got to happen in order for us to be effective, even as Rotarians. Even as Rotarians, because we all bring some stuff. And if I could just do if I could just get you involved in something quick, and I want to get you involved in a quick activity, and I know it's going to feel strange to you, but kind of go with me if you don't mind. If you don't mind, I need everybody to close their eyes just go with me and just go with me for a moment. If you just close your eyes, and I'm going to describe a scenario. I'm going to describe a scenario. Okay, there's a car, and it's barreling down the street. Keep your eyes closed. It is speeding. I mean, it's really speeding. There's more than one occupant in the car, and it's really speeding. The music coming from that car is blaring, it's blasted, it's loud. The car is jumping and thumping. The people in it are moving to the beat of the music. It's just all over the place. It's changing lanes, it's speeding, and suddenly the blue lights come on behind it. The siren that comes on, and the officer pulls the car over. The officer gets out of the car and approaches the car that was speeding. More than one occupant in it. Open your eyes. Open your eyes. Now I want you to just kind of go with me. You can open your eyes now. Now you can put in the chat or just whatever, but I want you to be very honest with yourself. How many people were in the car? Hold up some fingers if you want to. How many people were in your car? Two. Okay. I'm getting it in the chat and on the screen. 2, 3. Okay. What kind of music was playing? Just let's be honest. What kind of music was playing? Loud? Yeah, it was loud. But what genre was it? What kind of music? I know it was loud music, but what was it? Rap. Okay. What else? Rap. Okay. Now let me ask you this. What was the race and gender of the police officer? What was the race and gender of the police officer? White male, black male. Okay. Let me ask a question. Thank you for participating. Let me ask you a question. How come you didn't see 2 nuns playing gospel music and that the police officer was a Chinese female? Nobody said, why didn't you see that? I suspect that there are some nuns somewhere that's gotten speeding tickets. I suspect that there are some nuns somewhere who have their music playing too loud, I suspect somewhere there is a Chinese police officer. Now, nobody mentioned that. Now, it doesn't mean that you're good and bad people and that you buy into all these stereotypes. It just meant you don't know what you don't know. And we don't see people as they are. We see them as we are. And we see them out of our background, our experiences, and our exposures. That's what we do. And that's human nature. Because unconscious bias isn't always a bad thing. It can actually save your life sometimes. And so it's important that we talk to one another and just have these types of conversations. Gender bias still exists. Women still get paid 78 cents for every dollar that a man makes. That's still true. We have some work to do. We have some work to do. We understand that racism still exists. Homophobia still exists. Ageism still exists. Reading some information yesterday just on appearance discrimination. You know, if you look good, whatever that means, you get a pass sometimes when it comes to hiring. Just because you're cute. It has nothing to do with credentials or qualifications. And most people who talk about D, E, and I think E is in there now. And most people don't think that equality and equity are the same thing. And we use them interchangeably, and they're not the same thing. And so we start struggling with trying to be equal when we should really struggle to be equitable. I'm just kind of rambling here because I want to take some questions here in a moment because that's what I really love. But those are some of the things that we have to deal with as an organization because at any organization, you can't afford to be culturally illiterate. You can't. You know, you can't do it. You can't do it. We made, there was a retail store, and I don't know if any of you own a franchise or work there, so I won't call the name. You can look at your Google machine and pull this up because several years ago, this well-known retailer had a dress that they were marketing. And if you were a lady with double-digit size, the dress was called Manatee Gray. If you were size 10 and above, the dress was called Manatee Gray. If you were single digit, it was called Petite Gray. Now, it was the same dress. Now, who wasn't included in that conversation? Somebody said, I doubt very seriously if there were any women in that conversation at all, because I think they would have pumped the brakes on that. It's important. Somebody asked what suggestions I would have for these conversations. I think you have to have these conversations. We do a series of these called critical conversations. If you are uncomfortable doing them, that's okay. I would suggest that you start with people and learn how, and let me challenge you because I think this is the way to do it. Find someone whose story you can honor, who's not like you. Find a way to honor the story of someone who's not like you. And I would say start in smaller groups. That way your level of discomfort is minimized. It's still going to be uncomfortable. But I said it earlier, be prepared not to read your biography into someone else's life. Okay, that's important. Maybe it's not your experience, but it does not mean that it's not the experience of others. Listen to learn as opposed to listening to reply. I often carry, when I have these conversations, I often carry something to drink around with me, you know, because I don't know. I know you guys are Rotarians, but I didn't know if you was gonna say something to piss me off today. I just didn't know, you know. So what I do is always carry something to drink. So if you say something that just bothers me, I do like this. That gives me some time between the stimulus and the response. You know, so I learned that because I grew up in the project. So you know, I don't let the smooth taste fool you. I have to back down because Ronnie comes out sometimes. And so, and all of you have that button. But if you're going to be effective, be willing to suspend your right to become offended in order to be effective, because that's what leaders do. Leaders lead. And if you call yourself, and I see JL taking a glass of water, so that means he's getting ready to say something to me. Okay. Leaders lead. And if you call yourself a leader and nobody's following you, then you're not leading, you're just out for a walk. Because leaders lead. And that's what it takes. And I know organizations like the Rotary are leaders. And if you can have these conversations, you can cascade them into your community. And I think that's so vitally important. We've had a lot of success at the Cross and Shield. And I get to be the face of it. I get to be the face of it. And for that, I'm thankful. But everybody at Blue Cross talks about diversity and inclusion and cultural competency more than I do. And that takes work, and that takes a long time. We're preparing for our Black History program, but we have cultural awareness sessions. Everybody gets to do presentations and illustrations, everybody. And we have a global workforce, but we know it's important. And I remember about 6 years ago, I had called a meeting of volunteers for our Black History program. It's so interesting because when I got to the meeting, I was the only Black person in the room. And I thought, okay, now we got to have some Black people if we're going to have Black history, you know. But what hit me was that it had moved from a Black employee event to a Blue Cross event. It had moved, it had transitioned from a Black employee event to a Blue Cross event. And for that, I'm incredibly thankful. Let me just do some Q&As. Let me just start running my mouth and do some Q&As. President Ann?
Thank you, Ron. You've given us quite a bit to think about. So you did answer one of the questions from the chat. What steps can organizations take to create a diverse culture?
Wow. I think, I think the greatest thing that you start off with and have to continue is defining what diversity means to your organization. Okay. I know that sounds, you've got to define what diversity means to your organization and not the general, because everybody brings their definition of what it means. And so at the York Rotary, what does diversity mean? You have a D&I, DE&I subcommittee. Has anyone defined what that means? Does it mean is it a box checking event? I got 4 of those, I got 3 of these, I got this. Is that what it means? I hope not. And so I think define what it means. And so I don't spend a whole lot of time talking about diversity, but I spend a great deal of time talking about inclusion and cultural competency. Because if I have, I can look at Ben on the screen and I can look at James Walker on the screen and I see 2 white males, but there's as much diversity that exists between them as there is between J.L. Smith and Kevin Applenow. I could sit here and name 20 things that exist differently between Ben and James, just as I could J.L. and Kevin. So that's organic. So what does it mean? What does the Rotary of York look like from its own definition of diversity? And then educate around that. But I think it's a tiered process. I think education has to be continuous. Somebody asked me about SkillSoft. Uh, I think those package programs are good, but I think in order to be and build trust, I think it has to come from the leader first. Because if we just bring in speakers and consultants, that person is paid to come in, say a few words, as I call it, the long ranger syndrome, drop a silver bullet and then ride out of town. That's not effective. It's expensive, but it's not effective completely. I think you have to be the person as the leader who continues this conversation, and it has to be top down. It has to be top down. President Ann owns this, because if you don't, anything that you permit, you promote. Okay, let me do it again. Anything you permit, you promote. And so you've got to be the owner. You've got to be the owner of this work. And it has to cascade. It can't be bottom up. It can't.
Ron, thank you, Ron. There was a question that's buried in here that I think is important. You talk about we cannot afford to be culturally and corporately illiterate. We need to have cultural literacy. So one of the questions is, there are many ways to advance our understanding. So could you share with our members what are some best ways that you would recommend that you've seen people expand their cultural literacy?
Yeah.
Honoring someone who doesn't look like us, who's not like us.
Yeah. One of the things that we do in our society, we think in terms of equality, but equality to us means assimilation. And we want this template where everybody is kind of cookie cutter. But the people who are sitting next to us, even as I read those statistics, there are people who are sitting next to us, don't look like us, think like us. We can sit next to someone from South Asia, particularly India. Let me use that as an example. And that person might even have a bindi dot. They might be wearing the bindi dot, and we want to know about it, but we won't ask. We won't ask. And so when we have people in our workforces who are from other places, we want them to be more like us. So some of the things that we do we have regular classes on cultural competency, but we also provide opportunities for every single ethnic group in our workforce to tell us who they are. What's the work ethic of the group in which you are part of, the ethnic group? It's not just confined to Black History and Hispanic Heritage Month. Every single population, up to and including people who are differently or disabled, we want to know your experiences. We have often GLBTQ training in every single group, even if it's only one person. You get to present at the same level as everybody else. Yours is equal to Black History Month, even if it's one, because we want to know the work ethic and some of the things we learn. And most of the barriers are around our stereotypes. Most of the barriers make us uncomfortable. And so we open the doors and just let everybody. We're getting ready to do Israel and the Ukraine in the next 2 quarters. That's how we do it. And we just take all of our employees and say, we want to know more about you, particularly around the work ethics and around your culture, the music, the religion. And we do that in a non-judgmental way. And everybody's in those meetings from our CEO down. We actually have a board of directors diversity task force because we have a very inclusive board.
Thank you, Ron.
And so,
Another question is, you mentioned the distinction between equality and equity. Can you please expand on the difference and what it means for an organization like Rotary?
Yeah. I think the difference, we've started to use those words interchangeably. Um, but equity, you know, once, and when you talk about equity, it just simply means one size doesn't fit all. One size might fit one. And so it's important that we understand that. We are 74% female, for example, at the Cross and Shield, and we reside in this beautiful campus. And sometimes when I have to use the restroom, I have to run down the hall a couple of blocks before I find one. But en route to mine, I run past 3 women's restrooms. Now, as simple as that sounds, we're 74% female. It makes sense that we deal with that equitably and not from an equality standpoint. Because if we had the same number of restrooms for men that we have for women, that wouldn't make sense. And if we reduce the number of restrooms for women to the number that we have for men, that would be disastrous. So being equitable means that we have to do those types of things that fit the environment that we have. And as simple as that is, when we start thinking about that, what appears to be a subtle difference, we have to think and make strong decisions about, do we need to be equitable here or do we need to be equal? And we look at it in terms of our pay. We look at it in terms of our responsibilities. We look at it in terms of our hiring. We think about equity in all of those things. Equity says, what's the availability of a particular a role that we're trying to fill. We know, for example, that to find minority or African American CPAs, and some of our jobs require CPAs, that we've got to do something extraordinary. We can't do what we've always done because we get what we've always gotten. And so the Human Resources Department can't say, I couldn't find any. If you fish in the same pond, you're going to catch the same fish. Equality says, okay, let me put this advertisement out, and whoever comes, we will consider them for hire. Well, if I'm looking for Black or Latino CPAs, you know, it's kind of analogous to, I love catfish. I love catfish. And my office overlooks the Tennessee River. I can get all the catfish I want out of the Tennessee River. Now, my wife, on the other hand, she's not in the room, so I'm talking about her. You know, I'm in New York, she's somewhere in another state. But year before last, pre-pandemic, my wife loves redfish. Now, I tried to talk her into catfish, because I can get some of that just a block down the street. But I had to spend $5,000 to go to Cozumel to buy $20 worth of redfish, because that's where she likes it from. Now, it didn't make sense to me, but, you know, in order to stay married, I try to do that kind of stuff because I'm a good husband. But she ain't in the room to take issue with that. But equity says that sometimes I have to do something extraordinary. And I don't mean quotas and all that old kind of stuff. I just simply mean, look at your policies, look at your processes, look at your procedures. On the surface, they might look equal, but they might not be equitable. And so if I'm trying to find a Black CPA with 10 years of experience, I can't get that in the Tennessee River. Mm-hmm. I've got to come to York, or I've got to go down to where JL lives in Atlanta. That requires me to think equity.
Thanks, Ron. You answered a question that was in the chat box, and we just have time for one more question for you. What would you say to employers who believe their people aren't ready for honest conversations about racism?
Yeah, then I would say, you know, I would say, don't worry too much about the people who are not ready. And the reason I say that is because if you don't do this training, you need to worry. And if they leave, if you start this conversation and you have people to leave, it's better that you start this conversation and they leave than not to start this conversation and they stay. Because if you don't do it, it's like a rat on a cylinder. It's like that hamster on that wheel. He's running, your company is running, but it's not going anywhere. But you have to keep running in order to stand still. Learn to honor the story of someone who's different than yourselves, and don't read your biography into the lives of other people. I think that's key, because we've got to have this conversation. I got to hear, but and I know you do. I was in New York not York, but New York a couple of years ago, and we were receiving an award, and this guy said to me after I spoke, he said something along the lines from, Mr. Harris, I don't see color. Well, I thought that was one of the dumbest things I'd ever heard. Because if you don't see this, then you've invalidated a primary dimension of who I am. And experientially, this is a part of who I am. It's not a lot of profundity in it, but it is a part of who I am. And I said to him, well, if you don't see color and we're in New York, I really don't want to ride with you because we're going to come to some traffic lights. And if you don't see color, we got a problem. And so it's important that we understand, and somebody said it, this is hard work and it won't be fixed overnight. Kudos to you, President Ann, and to this Rotarian group for doing what you're doing. And thank you for this opportunity to have this conversation with you. I know I've rambled a lot, but I've tried to hit on a lot of things because it's big work. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ron. Congratulations on your life's work. And as you said, the world is changing at a revolutionary pace. And I think that COVID and the pandemic served to be gasoline on the fire that's burning in our country. And we appreciate the words of wisdom that you have shared with us and the inspiration to ensure that we are culturally literate, and that we think about what diversity means to our organization and to our community, and don't read our biographies into other people's lives. Suspend the right to become offended. And I love what you said about taking a drink in between the stimulus and the response. That's a great communication tool, which, as you said, it all gets down to that. Thank you so much, Ron. Thank you to your wife for lending you to us in our club today. In honor of your visit with us, Ron, we will send you a book plate that will go into the book called Don't Ask Me Where I'm from Jennifer DeLeon. And that will be donated to the York Academy Charter School in honor of our Students of the Month today.
And they were great. And thank you so much. Thank you, Miss Jackie.
Take care, Ron. Rotarians and guests, next week our club will feature the economic forecast provided by our virtual speaker, Linda Dussel. She is the Senior Vice President and Senior Equity Strategist at Federated Hermes. Hope you can all join us next week. In the meantime, have a safe week. Go Bucks. Our closing song is Lift Every Voice and Sing by Gladys Knight and BB Winans. This was suggested by Rotarian Jules Tolbert. The song was written in 1899 by one of the first NAACP executive directors, James Weldon Johnson, in Jacksonville, Florida. It's known as the Black National Anthem. It is both a hymn and a protest. Enjoy and take care. Thank you.